while back, a friend mentioned a game called Deep Rock Galactic to me, said it was worth looking at, and of course that meant that I immediately didn't check it out until way later. I really didn't give the game its due. So in the spirit of regretting not acting on recommendations yet again, let's review Deep Rock Galactic and ask, is it worth playing? So let's start with Deep Rock Galactic's gameplay. The high-level description of this game really isn't that immediately groundbreaking, which is somewhat ironic, but the execution and the depth to the gameplay actually marks it out in that crowded sea of co-op, explore, and wave defense em-ups. So you might argue that this game, if you described it in a sentence, has a lot in common with something like the classic Left 4 Dead or the newer evolution Back 4 Blood. You move through hostile areas as a co-op team, you have classes with unique abilities, you fight waves of enemies, and occasionally there's an objective to deal with. The actual experience of playing is really very different though. First of all, the world in which you inhabit while on the mission is purely subterranean. The procedural environment is also fully destructible, so if you want to dig in a particular location, you are free to do so, though the mission structure guides you somewhat to the relevant objectives. You might be needing to mine a certain amount of a mineral, find some weird alien egg things, connect and defend a drill station, escort a tunnel excavator, or even kill some boss-level mobs. For a game all about dwarves digging, it's much more variation than I had guessed. All the missions take place in the same themed world area, so although with the wide variation of missions, there's also a surprisingly wide variation of aesthetics, from fire to ice and jungle, just to increase things further. The mobs feel part of the same family though. They're alien and kind of spidery in their own way, with different abilities and attack patterns. But there's not the same level of variation you'll see in the environments, which honestly kind of makes sense, as creating, rigging and animating and working out the logic for lots of different enemy types is a huge task, even compared to making different biomes, though I would like to see some additional species of enemies in the future. The 4 classes all feel like valid choices. There's no pure support role. Everyone is expected to help take care of the unwanted attention from alien bugs. There are of course specialties though. The gunner is a mobile powerhouse packing the really big guns. The driller has automated digging abilities but also flamethrower type weapons. The scout is more about movement and reconnaissance, but also is the only class to feature a more powerful flare gun to light up a much larger area. And finally we have the engineer, my eventual chosen class while playing with friends. He has automated turrets to set up, think Torp from Overwatch, but also starts with a powerful shotgun. We seem to favour a double NG in our squad. The total of 4 turrets between us seem like a lot of free DPS. There's lots of variation in the classes though. There are weapon unlocks via assignments, basically a list of missions that you need to complete in order to get that unlock. The alternative weapons seem to be in a different style to the standard weapons for that class, i.e. if an NG starts with a shotgun, then the second available weapon is an SMG, so the game doesn't force you to just play in that shotgun style if you prefer something different, and I did. The weapons seem to all feel pretty good, and as this is PvE, the messy business of weapon balance isn't the spinning plate nightmare that PvP games have. Everything can feel pleasantly overpowered without worrying about the experience of the receiving player. This is one of those games that I'd really only play in a group of friends though. There is matchmaking if you want to play with some random people. I'll talk more about the player base size later, but it's sufficiently large that I wouldn't worry overly about finding games to join, though keep in mind this is peer-to-peer and not dedicated servers. It's also playable solo, though I'll admit to not actually trying that out. I did see a small robot buddy that solo players can opt to have join them on missions though, to help out with revives and other stuff that normal co-op players will be there to do for you. Selectable difficulty also meant that you could tailor your experience based on your groups, and as my team was a bunch of highly skilled, seasoned gamers, and me, I didn't mind the choice of the top available difficulty setting. It presented a decent challenge each time, and in fact, on occasion, proved to be decently tough. It felt like a well-judged option. There were some annoyances though, not particularly with the main gameplay loops, but more with the rougher edges for user experience. For example, you don't get floating name tags for your teammates at all times, so if someone shouts over near me, then everyone needs to press Control to bring up their pointer tool, and that re-enables the name tags briefly so you can orient yourself. It just feels like an unnecessary step. There's no real enjoyment in needing to keep tapping that key repeatedly. It could easily just be a game UI option. Some of the environments and locations have mechanics like green goop to massively slow your movement, And there's something anti-fun and instant frustration about that in FPS games to me. If you want to restrict player movement, then it needs to be telegraphed in a way that players understand they need to avoid in the future. Here, the goop can seemingly drop anywhere from enemies, so dying to it often just felt more like RNG with little to learn for next time. Well, apart from, hey, let's not play in this biome whenever possible. The graphics of Deep Rock Galactic seem to be largely a stylistic offshoot of the procedural tech that the world is made of. I'm not sure if it's like voxel in nature, and then there's some meshing on top of that, or if it's some other CSG or BSP method that they're using, but the result is a charming 90s FPS game aesthetic. Lower poly compared to more modern titles, but no poorer for it. It's chunky, but it's not Minecraft level chunky. On top of that simplistic look, or maybe even because of it, there are some really nice visual effects and lighting details. Things like the flamethrower and napalm effects look superb. The dynamic lighting of flares arcing into the dark is also a highlight for the game. The procedural and unknown environment also means that it's more than just visual eye candy. You really do need to know what the world you're actually moving into actually looks like. You don't want to run off a cliff by mistake, and yes, that's coming from experience. That visual theme does extend to the first-person weapon models. They're pretty low res, but as we'll talk about more in the customization section, weapon models do have some variation options. However, the shaders and textures that the different skins have feel simplistic and arguably lack a bit of fidelity. For example, I didn't see anything that vaguely looked metallic or reflective. It's all that same sort of flat shader. There is some inconsistency to the dynamic lighting too. Some environmental effects like floor vents that throw out bright-looking emissions don't actually cast light onto nearby environment. I'm not sure if that's due to a bug or perhaps performance-focused choice by the devs. And on the topic of performance in Deep Rock Galactic, I found it to perform pretty well in pretty much all situations, certainly holding itself in the high gaming monitor refresh levels at almost all times. As I said before, I didn't really think about performance as I was playing, so that's about as much of a compliment as I can really give. And just a quick aside to say, if you are enjoying this video, please do tap the thumb up button. It helps me out with YouTube and discoverability and all stuff like that. If you tap that subscribe button now as well, and I appreciate that too. Thank you so much for your support. It's a pretty varied amount of customization in Deep Rock Galactic, even for people not opting to buy the cosmetic DLC packs. There are in-game unlockable cosmetics tied to a character and account level. Character, armor, hairstyles, beard types, and so on. But also there are seasonal event cosmetics that we can unlock via a free Battle Pass style system that awards you points to put into a sprawling cosmetic tree. That way you can spend the points and unlock the items that you really want. It's a pretty nice system, even if leveling up those Battle Pass ranks do seem to take an age, though perhaps there's some min-maxing way to farm those points too. It wouldn't surprise me. On the paid DLCs, there are a number of options, all about the £6 level in the UK. In Deep Rock Galactic, they split the cosmetics into classes called frameworks and paint jobs, the former meaning a model change and the latter meaning a texture change, and you can mix and match those to your heart's content. Your fancy new shotgun can be coated with the paint job you unlocked when you first started playing. The paint packs are reasonably priced, and anecdotally they seem to review pretty well on Steam. There's that kind of sense that people who play the game a lot like to continue to support the game that they want continued development on, and hence £6 every so often for a bundle of cosmetics allows them to do that. It's also purely optional, there's no massive push in-game to buy those DLC items through Steam, which is nice. Also, the in-game unlockables mean that you don't feel shortchanged with the options you have, like me, if you only own the base game with no DLCs. I'd also just briefly mention that the game also does have mod support, and although I didn't install any, there were some of interest, but looking at those seems well out of the scope for this video. It's maybe something I'd look at in the future, but I thought it was worth pointing out. On bugs while playing Deep Rock Galactic, I did experience a pretty regular crashing issue. I was the only one playing on a high ping. Again, this is peer-to-peer, so depending on your friends, it may be an issue or not. But apart from some expected rubber banding, I don't think that was specific to the issue, but I'm not sure. I was getting an Unreal Engine crash dialogue maybe 2 to 3 times an hour, and although that did allow me to experience a very robust rejoining system, it meant that I didn't stop playing for more than a few seconds at a time, really. Tried multiple drivers for a whole bunch of things, and I was the only one in our group to get crashes on that sort of regularity, so it may be a system-specific issue. And eventually the workaround of playing in windowed borderless stopped the issue entirely. On player numbers, Deep Rock Galactic does impressively well for a title 2 years after its initial release. It's not an MMO, of course, so you don't need a massive community to play with. A few friends is enough if you don't want to mine with random people. In terms of overall game health though, Deep Rock Galactic manages around 7,500 to 11,000 concurrent peak players every day, which for a paid title like this is actually pretty impressive. So in 2022, this review of Deep Rock Galactic, is it worth playing? If you like a grindy, approachable co-op PvE game to play with your friends, then Deep Rock Galactic is absolutely worth your time. It's deeper and more enjoyable than I originally gave it credit for, and I feel remiss at only really looking at it now. The procedural nature of the maps is a huge bonus for the game. It really does feel like a new winding environment every time, sometimes working with you and often working against you as you fight monster after monster in the semi-dark. It's no horror game though, it doesn't rely on many jump scares to entertain. The tone is kept pretty light with the dwarf voices and general visuals. Some of that humour falls a little flat to me, but it doesn't detract and become annoying like other games. I'm very glad I finally got myself to look at it. It just took me a couple of years since launch, and it's a game that I'll certainly be keeping installed for sure. Deep Rock Galactic is £24.99 in the UK, $29.99 in the US, which is €29.99 in the EU. Though I would say that I've seen it on sale a bunch of times, often for 50% off, so keep your eyes peeled when the sales hit. But what do you think of Deep Rock Galactic? Is this sort of thing your bag? Like some PvE dwarf content? Let me know all your powerful thoughts and feelings. Leave a comment below right now. Like always, I'll be reading every single one of them. Yes, even yours. If you enjoyed this video, please do tap the subscribe and ring the bell. It really helps me out in growing the channel and continuing to make videos just like this one. Your support is massively appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.
Never felt better.